Well, straight to the action on Wall Street, Dalal Street, where the market surged on the back of strong global cues led by dovish commentary from the US Fed last night. The Nifty reclaiming 10,800 with a rally of over 1.5%. The Sensex also reclaimed the 36,000 mark with gains of over 650 points. The Bank Nifty has rallied over 460 points, topping 27,000, while the mid-caps have mildly underperformed with gains of about 0.7%. Breaking news on your screens, exactly what CNBC TV 18 had reported on the 16th of January. We've got several banks that have moved out of the PCA framework, the Prompt Corrective Action framework. And those banks include Oriental Bank of Commerce, Bank of Maharashtra, Bank of India. These are now out of the Reserve Bank of India's PCA framework, which means that the restrictions that were imposed on these banks have now been lifted. Remember, this was a big bone of contention between the government and the RBI. The government was pushing for relaxation of the PCA norms and wanted these banks out of the PCA norms. And now we have several important banks, Bank of India, Bank of Maharashtra and Oriental Bank of Commerce. They are out of the Prompt Corrective Action framework. Oriental Bank of Commerce has also been given an additional recap amount of over 1,100 crore rupees to exit the PCA framework. My colleague Sapna Das, who has just broken that story, is with us with more. Sapna, so 3 banks out of PCA?
Absolutely. In fact, the signals from the power corridors also were extremely clear. This matter had been under discussion and had been under consultation for long. In fact, let me just add the DFS Secretary, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, has just tweeted. He has said that government's sustained 4-hour strategy for banking transformation delivers again. 3 better performing banks, Bank of Maharashtra, Bank of India and OBC, exit PCA. Banks need to be more responsible, adopt high underwriting and risk management standards to avoid recurrence. So this is a sustained effort from the part of the government. The regulator accordingly has responded. Let's also keep in mind that some time ago, 41,000 crores worth of additional recapitalization bonds had been okayed by the Parliament. So the overall kitty for this year was around 1.06 crores, out of which 55,000 crores still remains to be infused. And as you rightly pointed out, Oriental Bank of Commerce also, though the NNPA level at some point in time we were not very sure whether it will come out, whether it will be able to exit the PCA framework that quickly. Bank of India and Bank of Maharashtra were very strong candidates because the NNPA levels were already below 6%. But here again we are given to understand that around 1,100 to 1,200 odd crores worth of further additional separate recapitalization has been given to Oriental Bank of Commerce, and putting these 3 together, they are the ones who have exited. Now the next level probably will be to watch out for Allahabad Bank and Corporation Bank. Here we are given to understand as of now that possibly after the Q4 results we may get a better sense on them, or even probably earlier to that. We are also given to understand that very soon, sometime in February, the next tranche of recapitalization will stand, and as I have just mentioned, 55,000 crores worth of recap bonds still remain. So once that money comes in, I'm sure the avenue for more banks to come out of the framework will open up.
All right, so that's the breaking story. As we mentioned, we reported this on the 16th of January, that this is what was being worked out. And after the results have come in for these banks, they're now out of the Reserve Bank of India's Prompt Corrective Action. Now, the other big story tonight, the Indian economy grew at over 8.2% in FY17. That is the year of demonetization. This according to the new GDP data, which hands it a sharp 110 basis point upward revision. This is the second highest rate of growth since the new series began in 2013. FY18 GDP has been revised from 6.7% to 7.2%. That's not all. Agriculture growth in demonetization year is nearly 7%. This is the highest rate of growth since the new series. Agri growth in FY18 is also at a healthy 5%. So what do we make of these changes? And what does it mean now as far as policy is concerned? Let's go across to Lata. Lata, who in the demonetization year, the fastest growth rate coming in for the economy and for agriculture. What do you make of this?
Well, actually, the new data, revised data presented by the CSO has thrown up more questions than answers. We understand that for a demonetization year, if it was 8.2% growth, then how did we explain the contraction in cement output for all the months from November to March, we saw cement output negative compared to the year-ago levels. So that doesn't gel with this tertiary sector growth of 8.4%. Bank loan growth was practically non-existent in those 5 months. It grew by barely 5%. Therefore, it's a little difficult to explain this 8.2% growth in FY17. Assuming that a lot of cash economy data, cash economy activity had happened to get rid of cash, the FY18 data, it shows that it is 7.2, which means the economy slowed by 1 percentage point from FY17 to FY18. But what we had was that during GST, there was a lot of stocking, and in the second half, there was a sharp increase in activity. So what happens to that data? Is our understanding that FY18 was faster than FY17 wrong? And then, the way in which this series of events have happened, first, there was a back series recasting which was presented by the Niti Aayog and which the NSC, the National Statistical Commission, was not even given to vet, and therefore those commission members walk out. And employment data is not, which is available, is not released. Then you have this kind of a GDP data. The question foreign investors are asking is the CSO compromised? Now, one doesn't know whether the blame lies in incompetence or whether the blame lies in mischief, or whether the entire system is, not capable of throwing up data which is matching with other concurrent data like earnings growth of corporates, like car sales, cement sales, electricity consumption, or for that matter, credit growth. It's not gelling with contemporaneous data, and therefore, foreign investors who look at this will ask both these questions. Is the CSO compromised? Is Indian data compromised? And if it is, can we invest in this country? Even more important than foreign investors is how will India take decisions? Now, if you look at this 8.2% growth in FY17, the Reserve Bank was very right at that time to go from accommodative to neutral. But at that time, the chief economic advisor had criticized the RBI for exactly doing that. How do you take policy decisions like interest rates hike or cut? Or for that matter, agriculture is growing at 6.8% in FY17. Over and above that, a 5% in the next year, FY18, then agriculture should be doing very well. In that case, why does it need a package, which the budget is expected to announce? So policy decisions, policy programs, everything become difficult if you cannot trust the data. Someone up there has to explain. We have to, first of all, clean up the act, and we have to restore credibility to India's data collection. Maybe very urgently, a new NSC, National Statistical Commission, has to be appointed, staffed with upright people, people who have credibility, and this data has to be vetted yet again.
Well, Lata, thanks very much. That's the revised GDP data. But in less than 24 hours from now, Finance Minister Goyal will present what will be the government's last budget ahead of the Lok Sabha elections later this year. And from what we are picking up from our sources, the government may announce a farm package on the lines of that rolled out by Odisha and Madhya Pradesh. Remember, the stress in the farm sector has been one of the key themes dominating the budget narrative this time around. Parikshit Luthra standing by with more. Parikshit, what are you picking up?
Well, ever since the loss in assembly elections, the government has been looking at several state schemes in order to augment farmers' income and support them across the country. They've studied schemes in Madhya Pradesh, in Rajasthan and other BJP-ruled states, and also some of the states ruled by regional parties. So they've zeroed in on the scheme that the Odisha government has for farmers. It is called the Krishak Assistance for Livelihood and Income Augmentation. Under this, 10,000 rupees per year is given to small and marginal households. At the same time, 12,500 per year is given to landless households as well. Tenant cultivators are also included in this scheme, and therefore the government considers that the Odisha scheme or the Krishak Assistance for Livelihood and Income Augmentation is better than the Raitu Bandhu scheme of Telangana. What will be the numbers? What will be the target group? We'll have to see the budget fine print. But what we are hearing that the government plans to implement this on a nationwide scale for small and marginal farmers, and there will be a direct transfer as well. The second scheme the government seems to have zeroed in on is the Bhavantar Bhugtan Yojana, which is essentially a scheme that the Madhya Pradesh government has been implementing for a while now. So there would be a deficiency payment mechanism that will be rolled out in the vote on account. We're going to hear about this. This is what our sources are telling us. And this will be compensation if actual income is lesser than potential income. So we'll wait for the budget announcement, but it seems that there will be a push for farmers, some good news for farmers in the budget.
Well, that is what we are expecting. Parikshit, many thanks for joining us. An angry Supreme Court has summoned Sahara Group Chief Subrata Roy for a personal appearance on the 28th of February. This comes after Roy failed to refund over 10,000 crore rupees more to investors. The apex court even threatened to initiate contempt proceedings against him. Ashmit Kumar joins us now with more details. Ashmit, scathing observations from the court. Take us through the action.
Indeed, Justice Gogoi expressing his frustration, in fact, going on and telling the Council of Sahara that as of this stage, it appears that there appears to be no intent, that their conduct is inspiring absolutely no confidence and is giving absolutely no indication that there appears to be any intention to repay that amount. Now, as far as the amount itself is concerned, just to give our viewers some perspective, the total amount payable as per the 2012 order is about 25,000 odd crores. As far as the amount paid, deposited so far, it's about 15,000 crore rupees. So that's a deficit of 10,000 crore rupees. Now, the councils for Sahara had been seeking more indulgence, had been seeking more time, had been making arguments, often repeated arguments about the need for verification of the funds that have come so far. However, the apex court clearly held that as of right now, enough indulgence has been shown, that they have been given a long enough rope, but there appears to be no intention of repayment. And on the back of that, the Supreme Court going a step further and saying that Subrata Roy himself in person will have to appear on the date of the next hearing. And not only that, also slipping in a caveat that this issue will be taken to its logical conclusion. So clearly that being a thinly veiled reference with respect to what the consequences could be. Now, we've seen that in March of 2016, he had been sent to Tihar jail. Is that something that awaits him? Well, that's subject to speculation. But for now, Supreme Court playing it hardball, making sure that this matter comes to an end. Of course, more clarity awaits the fate of Subrata Roy on February 28th. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Ashmit, for that. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of What's Hot. Thanks very much for watching. Up next, the Nifty reclaiming 10,800, a rally of over 1.5%. The Sensex also reclaimed 36,000, gaining 650 points, a pre-budget rally that we've seen for our markets. Markets Today Talkback takes the action forward. We'll see you in 30 minutes on India Business Hour.